Hey everyone, this is a VoD review of Echo Fox versus CLG. I'm John Valentine, and let's get into it. So, these team comps. Certainly some interesting decisions. Immediate thoughts, Echo Fox has 3 losing lanes, which is something you never want. And I can talk about that because Echo Fox is also inting. So, quick backup. Okay. Pings are going down onto the members of CLG. Rush is being intelligent and walking away because he knows, as was pinged out, that CLG are moving into this red side jungle. Solo, on the other hand, is walking right in to CLG, who they just pinged out moving into their red side jungle. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call inting, short for intentionally feeding, and it is not something that one should be doing in a professional League of Legends game. Anyway, team compositions are very questionable on both sides. Echo Fox has scaling in all 3 lanes and the jungle, which basically means they have pretty much 0 agency for the first 20 minutes of the game. All that Fox want to do is let nothing happen and try not to be too far behind when the 25-minute-ish mark comes through. CLG, on the other hand, have 3 winning lanes and a winning jungle. This is to some extent redundant, because if you say look at a Rek'Sai, the main advantages you get by having a Rek'Sai on your team is that she can pressure the enemy jungler and pressure the lanes in probably better than most other junglers can. So Rek'Sai is really, really good at basically getting your lanes in advantage and applying pressure to your lanes, but CLG already has advantage in their lanes. They already have pressure in their lanes. So unless this Rek'Sai is going to be able to pull off aggressive dives that basically kill members of Fox and snowball these lanes really, really, really hard, CLG could have had a much, much better jungle pick. Something like a Kindred, for example, would have been incredibly powerful. We just saw how strong a Kindred can be when she has multiple winning lanes. So something like a Kindred would be much more powerful than the Rek'Sai here. As it stands, CLG has an advantage in every single position. Yes, the Morgana is somewhat advantaged into the Thresh, but as we saw in that bottom lane exchange, when the Morgana misses her binding, Thresh comes out ahead pretty much all the time. So Fox, just starting off, have pretty much nothing they can do. Rush is never going to be able to get a proactive play anywhere on this map. His only real option is to try and stop Wiggly from getting a proactive play, but as the Sejuani into the Rek'Sai, that means by default you're going to fall behind in CS, you're going to lose access to your jungle, and you're going to be abandoning your losing lanes to lose. Rek'Sai, however, again, all that the Rek'Sai can do is kind of power farm up and counter jungle and get some advantage in farm, but Sejuani doesn't really care about being a bit down in CS. And Fox expects all of the members to be down some amount of CS, and they're just trying to get cast into level 16 and jinx to 3 items and to get to these very specific power spikes late in the game. So the Rek'Sai, not necessarily a great pick. On top of that, if we look at CLG's team composition, it's really quite dysynergistic, right? Nico wants to 1-4 or 1-3-1, right? Zoe is very strong in a 1-4. She can't 1-3-1 unless you have a split pushing jungler or AD carry, which they don't. So already the CLG comp needs to 1-3-1, needs to 1-4. However, the only source of disengage on the side of CLG is Thresh Lantern, which is inconsistent and only can be taken by one member, and Nico ult, which is never going to be with your main 5. Which basically means either A, Fox hard dive onto Nico and probably lose something in the 3v4, or B, Fox hard dive onto the other 4 members of CLG, win that fight, get multiple kills because there is not significant disengage on the side of CLG, and end up extending the game, taking even trades instead of disadvantageous trades, etc. So it becomes very difficult for CLG to actually extend a lead. Yes, they have all of these winning lanes. They're going to get a bunch of turret plates for it, and they're going to get basically a free 5,000 or so gold lead because of their champion picks in these matchups. But their team composition is actually really poor at taking advantage of that. Zoe is very strong in this 1-4 situation, but she needs some form of disengage to help keep champions like the Morgana, the Sejuani, and the Kassadin off of her, and that is just not present on the side of CLG. However, if CLG plays very well, does get aggressive, does take use of their pressure in all 3 lanes to get that aggressive vision, shut down anything that Fox tries to do, and does whittle these turrets down with the Nico poke, with the power of the, or with the Zoe poke, with the power of the Nico split push, then CLG absolutely can push forward and win this game without Fox really having anything to say about that. However, because there are 0 scaling champions on the side of CLG whatsoever, because there is this dyssynergy within the team composition of CLG, if something goes wrong for CLG, if even trades are taken and the game extends and the gold totals inflate, if CLG gets picked off because there is this great engage on Echo Fox and not very much disengage on the side of CLG, if really the game extends in any way or anything at all goes wrong for CLG, they do pretty much just fall over. Eventually you'll get to a point where the Nico can no longer 1v1 the Kassadin. At which point, CLG no longer wins the split push. They can't 1-3-1, so they don't get to keep Kassadin away from the Nico, right? Eventually, the lanes will be swapped out, and Fox will start winning the 1v1. Fox already is favored in the 4v4 because there's so much more teamfight power on Fox that CLG is dependent on disengaging from the fight and poking down and taking quick, short skirmishes. But CLG has a really hard time making that happen. We're going to see right here is pretty much Wiggly just inting. We can look at this in the replay, actually. This is something that shouldn't happen. Fenix will then proceed to get caught out because he is a squishy Kassadin. But he is still a level 6 Kassadin, so he is perfectly safe. We'll take a look at this replay when it comes up, but that was a really kind of questionable play from CLG, and this is example number 1 of things going wrong for CLG. Okay, so there's bot lane's MIA. Mid lane is being pushed in. Wiggly is thinking, yeah, we have these winning matchups in all of our lanes. We have pressure in all 3 lanes. It's time to go. It's time to get that aggressive counter jungle where we ward up the Echo Fox jungle and stop them from being able to do anything. But they don't have pressure in their lanes. Like, Wiggly has managed to pick the one time when Kassadin isn't pinned under his turret. He has some amount of pressure, and we'll get to this first, where the bot lane isn't pinned under the turret. The wave is here, and they're not even there, so it's pretty obvious they're either on a recall or somewhere in this jungle. So, what is Wiggly doing? Why is he going into the Echo Fox jungle now? He had plenty of opportunity to earlier when his lanes were actually pressuring, but they're coming off of a recall, or the wave just bounced back, or something has happened that has caused the CLG lanes to be back while Wiggly is forward. This is really, really abysmal communication, really abysmal planning on the side of CLG, and he honestly does deserve to die for this. You see, on top of that, he sees multiple tremor senses. He knows there's multiple people here. He still face checks into them, and he does 100% just die for it. Fenix, as soon as he got hit by the bubble, needed to R out. He doesn't and takes a huge chunk. Also very poor. So already both teams are pretty much inting directly into each other. It's a very questionable game so far on both sides. However, because the game is being played at a low level, because both teams are making significant mistakes, Fox is immediately significantly advantaged. This is due to the fact that games that are played at a low level tend to be bloody, tend to have a lot of even trades back and forth, both of which heavily favor the scaling composition. Team games that are played at a lower level also tend to favor compositions that are easier to execute, right? CLG with this hard early game, hard split push team composition, their comp is very linear, only has very specific scenarios in which it is successful, and it loses out in pretty much any other situation. We'll talk about this in a second. Meanwhile, the Fox comp is successful in, compared to CLG comp, all of those situations, but they lose if CLG gets their early lead, gets to pressure all of their lanes early, push rush out of the jungle, stop Fox from making any proactive plays, and slowly bleed them out. There's a very specific line of plays, there's this very specific line that CLG can take because they have the early pressure, that 100% shuts Fox out of the game. However, it requires CLG to play very, very clean in order to pull that off. If they don't play clean, they will get caught out, there will be mistakes made, and Fox will find situations in which they are able to win. So this almost comes off as hubris on the side of CLG, saying, hey, we're good enough to play this complicated, difficult team composition that is a guaranteed win if we play it correctly in this compositional matchup. Plot twist, CLG isn't good enough to make playoffs. They're not good enough to play such a complicated set of champions. We're going to see some of that right here. So first off, Wiggly is caught out, right? And this looks bad, but this is actually really good for CLG because they have pulled Kassadin out of the mid lane. Zoe's going to be able to come up, get turret plates, deny a bunch of farmed Kassadin. This is exactly what CLG wants. They want to deny as much gold from Fox as possible while pushing down these turrets. However, Wiggly has flash. On top of that, Wiggly has flash. Wiggly has Blue Smite to slow down Solo. Wiggly, I don't know if he used it already, but Wiggly is pretty much able to get out of this. If you combine that with the Nico ultimate to disengage, the Nico snare to disengage, it is very easy for CLG to just back out of this, take the massive advantage they pick up mid lane because of this play, and come out further ahead. That progresses their game plan. That pushes them towards the end goal that they want of having control of the map and having Fox get as little gold as possible. Instead, Darshan decides it's a great idea to go in at the same time Wiggly is going out. He ults, instead of ulting for disengage and going out, he ults for engage, flashes in, and what does Darshan, how does Darshan expect this play to go out, right? He has burned his flash, he's already used his W and his R. He has to know there is no way he comes out of this alive, right? Especially with Wiggly all the way over there. Maybe if Wiggly had stayed nearby and could knock up the members of Fox, then Darshan could get out, but then Wiggly would be stuck in and Wiggly would die. So there is no way for CLG to come out of this clean, right? They are getting... Darshan, by going in, is committing to a 1-for-1 trade at least. He is going to die to kill Solo. And that is, again, the opposite of what CLG want. CLG needs to deny as much gold from Fox as possible. What 1-for-1 trades, even trades, will always advantage the team that scales better. It will always advantage the team that is behind. And this is exactly that. This is CLG playing directly into Fox's hand for no reason. They were in such an advantageous situation with Wiggly being able to get out and with Zoe being able to deny all that CS to Kassadin and get all those turret plates. But they just int directly into Echo Fox. This is Fox taking a bad rotation and getting rewarded for it. This is very poor play on both sides and something I'm really not happy to see out of a playoff team, right? One of these teams is making playoffs. And that is going to be mostly because Cloud9 Academy isn't actually allowed to get a playoff spot, but it's just watching this game is really, really poor. And I look forward to TSM getting out of quarterfinals in record time. Really, really bad stuff out of both of these teams. Anyway, the game continues. Fox is now pulling ahead, even though the goal lead is expanding in CLG's favor, because twice now, Fox has got even traits. As I mentioned, if things go wrong for CLG, Fox wins. CLG has already had multiple things go wrong for them. So, CLG, yeah, they're going to get the Rift Herald. This is a given, right? They should also be able to pick up this Drake. In fact, they should have picked it up 5 minutes ago and have been unable to do that for whatever reason. But CLG are showing they do not know, they are not able to play out this team composition in an effective way, right? If Wiggly had not just completely inted into the Echo Fox blue side jungle, they would have gotten the Drake for free already. He did, and they didn't get the Drake yet. Because of this, they're going to have basically one fewer Drakes. They could have had another Drake by this point. Instead, that very first Cloud Drake is still sitting there. Yeah, they get the Herald. They get some more gold onto Darshan. Great. Darshan is already ahead. He's going to stay ahead for a while, right? He is arguably the person that you need to snowball the least, because it is a counter matchup. He will be advantaged against the Vlad unless something happens that infuses, that gives the Vlad a bunch of gold out of nowhere. However, the other matchups, your mid lane matchup, your bottom lane matchup, will eventually turn, and they will turn much sooner. Eventually, very soon actually, this Kassadin, probably around at level 11, will start to actually have pressure onto the Zoe. Very soon, this Jinx Morgana will have advantage, probably around the 2-item mark, but still sooner than the Vlad will. This bottom lane will start to have advantage over the CLG bottom lane. So, expanding your lead top it is important for CLG, but it is probably the least important lane to expand your lead. In. We're going to see Darshan dying for no reason. I need to take another look at this. I don't know what exactly he thinks he's doing this far up. So, looking at this map state, right? If you take a gander at the CLG vision, at this point in the game, they should have a vision line something like this, right? They should have shallow vision in the Echo Fox jungle, right? Which would then allow them to continue to push up their lanes and continue to establish that shallow vision in the Echo Fox jungle. They don't have that because they've now lost a couple of fights. Wiggly has just moved to the bottom lane. CLG knows this. He's their jungler. They haven't seen Rush for a while, right? And Darshan has no flash. So, what is he doing when he sees Vladimir walk up and ult him in this matchup, right? There is no world in which a Vladimir, like in this 1v1, is ever going to get a solo kill or win realistically any fight 1v1 against a Nico. Why oh why would Solo walk up and ult Nico instead of ulting the wave or just waiting for the wave to crash into the turret? The only possible explanation is that Rush is here. But Darshan doesn't see that. Darshan instead sees, oh my god, Solo's walked up and ulted me, I can get a chunk onto him. So Darshan stays in, and Darshan ults Solo. And Solo could have even dodged that if he had stepped out, but that's immaterial, and Darshan will die for no reason. I cannot begin to understand what is going on in the inner minds of the CLG players. Oh, this is also a classic Fenix question mark ping moment. This is a beautiful play on the side of Fenix. We're gonna see he walks in to the bubble trap on the ground, and then immediately ults forward, just in time to get hit by the full Nico combo, instead of ulting behind the minion wave, or ulting just out of vision or out of range. This is your classic spam ping question mark. Fenix does this a lot. He moves back and forth between having really, really questionable plays and having some really brilliant ones. But that was one of those questionable plays, and that's what you kind of sign up for when you put Phoenix on your roster. Phoenix will die. Rush will have to come mid to defend this turret, which now Darshan can actually look at the map and know that Rush isn't coming, can actually take top tower. CLG finally takes the Drake. Imagine if they had taken that Drake 8 minutes ago when they were first able to, because Wiggly, say, hadn't inted into the blue side jungle, or CLG had done a better job of coordinating their pressure. They would have picked up the Infernal 3 minutes ago. They would know what the Drake after that is. They would have an Infernal Drake, which really helps with the Zoe, Nico, Lucian, Rek'Sai composition. And CLG would just be in an endlessly better spot. It's these really small mistakes that a comp like CLG's cannot afford to be making. These tiny mistakes, one death in the jungle, a 1-for-1 trade on the top side. These are mistakes that a composition like this just can't afford to make. Fox's comp can afford to make those mistakes. If they make those mistakes, they just wait longer, and the game will still eventually win the game. If CLG makes those mistakes, they lose their window, and they can no longer push those advantages. They give Fox a chance to actually counter whatever they're trying to do, and CLG gives up their opportunities. When we see higher ranked teams in this situation where they have 3 winning lanes, the game just ends, right? If you have those 3 winning lanes and you have a team composition that is functional, unlike either of these, if you have 3 winning lanes, you just win, right? If you coordinate your pressure, so you're pressuring your lanes at the same time instead of pressuring one lane while you're recalling another and pushing it at the jungle when both of your lanes are being bounced back, like CLG has done, there's nothing the enemy can do, and you just win. That is very clearly what CLG was going for and is going for into this game. But their coordination and their players are just not there. They're just not at a level that can actually perform that. And Echo Fox, just playing the easier team composition, just has to wait and take the even trades that CLG hands them and eventually win for free. As it stands, there is actually a pretty significant, almost 20% gold lead on the side of CLG. And yes, the champions on CLG use gold. Okay, let's take a quick look at this, because Darshan is going to throw his W forward in the same direction that he's traveling. The Nico W always is faster than you. It will always be in front of you. So if you're running away from somebody, if they have any skill shots at all, you need to throw the clone behind you. It's pretty easy, really, to block skill shots, or at least make it more difficult for them to chase you. He throws it in front of himself and will just die because he gets hit by the ult because of it. Kind of poor out of Darshan. Yes, he didn't have vision of Rush on his way, but he did to some extent know that Rush was coming. And even so, like, there is no benefit to throwing the Nico W in front of you in that situation, right? Even if you don't know Rush is coming, if you're popping the W, you should still be throwing it behind you. Really just kind of questionable, like, major mistakes out of Darshan that we should not be seeing at this level of play. This is your friendly reminder that CLG had Viper, and they let him go in order to keep Darshan and Fallen Bandit. So the game continues. The gold lead is no longer growing because Darshan has died. They lost pressure topside. CLG does not have aggressive vision into the Echo Fox jungle, even though they have all of the outer turrets and are able to push these lanes in that deep into the map. And CLG's just kind of doing nothing, right? And to some extent, they're running out of things that they can do. They don't have the disengage necessary to make this 1-4 really work. They don't have a solo laner capable of spending time in a side lane with Kassadin. Zoe is too immobile, doesn't have teleport, like, will get chased down in a long side lane. Like, Zoe needs to be mid. Lucian can't really survive 1v1 versus the Kassadin. Yes, he can poke him down a little bit, but again, he'll get chased down in this long side lane. So Lucian can't be alone. He needs Biofrost to be there with him. But Power Evil also needs Biofrost. Otherwise, he'll get caught out because all of this engage on the side of Echo Fox, and he's an immobile little Zoe. So it's a very dissynergistic team composition for Team Liquid. This is one of those PogChamp Fenix plays I actually really love. So to start off, teleport advantage on Fox. Neither AD carry are remotely close, right? However, if Apollo were on top of things and willing to give up that wave of CS at the turret, he absolutely could get into this fight well before Sticks A. So looking at this is actually like a pretty decent setup for Fox if they can get a team fight. Now, past 15-20 minutes, any setup is going to be a good setup for Fox if they can get a team fight because they have a vastly superior team fight. It is CLG's job to disengage as much as possible and not let team fights occur. So, because CLG will never take a fight, willingly at least, Fenix has this beautiful int, right? He has this kind of fantastic stopwatch bait where he just dives into 3 people, makes it look like he is just completely inting, which is a classic Phoenix thing to do. So you kind of take it at face value if you're not looking too deep at the map state, which CLG very clearly isn't and has never been. But Fenix just ults into 3 people and just takes a huge chunk and says, okay, I'll stopwatch now. And with his ult coming off cooldown by the time the stopwatch runs out, with Rush getting in here to provide a little bit of extra crowd control, Jinx could also be here. She was standing right next to the Morgana, but is late because she's clearing the wave. But off on the face of things, with neither AD carry participating, it's a 3v3 fight. There's a TP advantage, so the Vladimir is able to get in onto this back ward that Fox should never have gotten because CLG should have been able to pressure the wave so much that Fox was never able to walk this deep into their jungle. And Echo Fox is able to pick a team fight. They're able to kill Zoe, right? And now they're going to just pick up this Infernal Drake for free, which wouldn't even be available if CLG had taken the Cloud Drake earlier like they should have. But CLG misreads the map. Fenix has this beautiful engage, inting, quote-unquote, int, bait. And Fox get a fight they should never have been able to get this early, at least. And they're going to pick up an Infernal Drake that they never should have been able to get. And already the game is starting to end for CLG. The window is gone. They've lost control. They are getting picked. They do not have the disengage to make these fights work successfully. And they have not been able. Yes, the Nico is ahead to some extent, but Darshan has died multiple times due to his own mistakes. So he's not actually that far ahead. There's now an Infernal Drake pumping up this Vladimir's DPS in the 1v1. There's so many things have now gone wrong for CLG, right? That they have given up their advantage. They have given up this they've walked away from the very set in stone path to victory that they had selected for themselves with this draft. And because they have lost the opportunity to pursue the one path of victory their team composition allowed them, they no longer have a real path to victory at this point. The only way CLG can now win the game, really, is if they get a really good Zoe bubble onto someone who is completely alone and can burst down Apollo 100 to 0. And even then, they don't necessarily actually win any sort of fight or get much out of the deal. Kassadin is now level 11. Vladimir is past level 11. The Nico is only going to get less powerful. The Rek'Sai is only going to get less powerful. The Zoe is only going to get less impactful. And CLG was just completely unable, because of mostly personal mistakes, but also a good amount of kind of poor rotations and map movements. CLG has been completely unable to push the leads they needed to push, and the window is now closed on them. I'm going to see yet another gank onto Darshan. The Nico is a very vulnerable champion and is one of the champions on CLG that is very dependent on having that aggressive vision control in the enemy jungle, right? You need to know, like, where the enemy jungler is. You need to have control over the enemy's jungle. And CLG has failed to obtain that, and now Nico is far too vulnerable to have any real pressure. On top of that, the map has now progressed to a state where the Kassadin can now be the solo lane for Fox, and doesn't necessarily win, but he is able to have some sort of pressure onto the Nico. So CLG is running out of options. Yes, because Rush made that failed bot lane gank, and Darshan was able to just walk away. Fox will lose a top lane turret. That is something for CLG. That is the kind of plays that they need to be making. But if you're CLG, you cannot be depending on rotational mistakes from Fox as your win condition. And that's the state of the game. So already this game is looking to be pretty much decided. And it's going to take a while because Fox still haven't actually scaled up. They just haven't fallen behind to as much of a degree as CLG was dependent on. But this game is rapidly getting to be out of hand for CLG. So if you're Echo Fox, who now to some extent gets to decide the lane assignments because CLG is playing back behind the river where they can never want to be, you can initiate this 1-3-1 and force the Lucian, who is not great in a solo lane without teleport, to match you, and or force the Zoe, who is even worse in a solo lane, to match you. You can keep these two hyper-scaling solo laners in solo lanes like you want, so that they can get the levels they need to really start to overpower CLG. Power People is going to ult into melee range of Rush, and Fox will dive him, as should be expected. And this is exactly the type of thing that CLG should never be allowing to happen. Again, with their team composition, CLG needs to basically never team fight. When you Zoe ult into melee range, yeah, it's not directly suicide, because you do get knocked back, because you do get taken back out, and then you can flash and what have you, and you probably got a bubble off, even though, yeah, there's a Morgana right there. But it's not necessarily the worst thing ever, because you can still bring your team in, and you can still have this, worst case, you get a team fight, right? But CLG can't team fight. So the worst case of Power of Evil making this aggressive alt bubble play is like the best case that happens of this like turn of events is a fight, which is the worst thing that CLG could get right now. Like, yeah, you have TP advantage, so maybe if you can get the, or you don't even have TP advantage because the one without TP is mid lane. You don't have anything going for you. Phoenix has some amount of pressure in the bottom lane and actually gets here without having to TP. The pressure created by this team fight forces Nico to burn TP, and you have an AD Nico TPing into the middle of a team fight, which is exactly the worst place for an AD Nico to be. We're going to see Jinx starting to pick up kills and getting excited. This is a complete nightmare on the side of CLG. This is the game being over. Like, if this happens, Echo Fox pick up a second Infernal Drake. There is no way CLG can actually come back into this game now. This is the part where you cue the circus music. I swear this is the most entertaining team fight I have ever watched. Also one of the most horribly played. Quick example, Apollo is gonna just walk in a straight line right into the Nico, right into the Zoe queue. Hakuho just did exactly the same thing when he had flash up. Why? Nobody knows. Solo is going, Power Hero is going to miss both of his abilities, and Solo is going to run away from him anyway, even though Rush is there. They then choose to go in once the bubble is back up, and Biofrost has arrived. Why? Who knows? Solo gets ignited, goes into the pool to survive, and then has to burn the stopwatch. And now Phoenix is teleported back in, and he's going to kill Zoe, except no, the Zoe also stopwatches. It's actually hilarious to watch, and it was an incredibly entertaining fight. Fraught with mechanical mistakes from both teams. But to some extent, this is the best that CLG can hope for, right? They picked up some kills, and Zoe like did a lot of work in this fight, and it actually worked pretty well. Zoe wasn't immensely pressured, and they actually got a pretty solid fight. It went pretty even. Oh, but wait, CLG can't take even fights. If CLG takes even fights, then both teams are accelerated toward the late game, which CLG hard loses. So even in the best case scenario of CLG gets executes the team fight quite well because multiple members of Echo Fox just walk right into Zoe burst. Even in that best case scenario, you still come out behind. This game is over. It's not really necessarily worth watching the replay anymore. CLG is going to go for the Desperation Baron, get pulled off of it by two members. It's the game state is no longer tenable for CLG. There is not necessarily much analysis left to make. We're pretty much just waiting for Kassadin to hit level 16, Vladimir to hit level 16, and Jinx to finish her third item. At which point the game basically ends. We're gonna see in a quick second. Skipping ahead a little bit here because nothing's happening and the game's over. This is also just kind of questionable. You see CLG take a recall and allow Kassadin to take a turret for free when they have pressure bottom lane and multiple members of Fox are also on a recall. That shouldn't be happening. We see Nico is now losing the 1v1 to the Vlad because there are two Infernal Drakes and there's Zanyas, and this is a scaling Vladimir. And once you get to that point, where Nico doesn't even win 1 versus 1 against the Vladimir anymore, the champion pretty much stops existing. At that point, you're basically playing a 4 versus 5 with a free Zerat portal in whichever lane you choose. That's pretty much what it is. There's something that's pushing a side lane that you just need someone to go and collect the gold from to stop it from pushing that lane. That's what Nico is. It's a Zerat portal. Doesn't contribute anything to a team fight. Is pretty much useless in a split push unless for some reason CLG is winning a 4 versus 5 fight on the map somewhere else. Nico no longer exists as a champion. She missed her chance to be useful, and because there were two Infernal Drakes, because CLG failed to pick up either of them when they had the chance, the top lane's over, right? With the top lane over, and we already talked about why the 4v4 isn't as favorable to CLG as it should be because of the dyssynergies within their team composition, all of the map is over. There is no longer a favorable lane assignment for CLG. All 1-3-1, 4-1, 5-5, and anything in between, CLG loses. There is not a world in which CLG should ever win this game. And Fox just has to take it slow. Like, they don't have to do anything. Picking up the Drake is nice. Denying resources to CLG is nice, but ultimately Fox just has to kind of wait. They'll take the Baron eventually for free because CLG cannot contest. Yes, there is this Zoe poke that can kind of come in this big team fight Nico ultimate that could be impactful inside of the Baron pit, but I would happily take, as Echo Fox, a 5v5 fight where we have a somewhat disadvantageous position and are at 75% health because of Baron damage. Like, I would take that. That's an easy win with how much stronger you are in any sort of 5v5 situation. So there's very little CLG can do at this point. And I would like to be seeing Fox more aggressively posture around that Baron and start to actually push the advantage they have. They absolutely don't need to, right? They can afford to take as long as they want. The longer the game goes, the more favored they are. So it is perfectly understandable that they would choose to wait even further. However, the more you extend the game, the more opportunities you are giving to your players to misstep and get caught, and the more opportunities you are giving to CLG to do something out of character, uncharacteristically brilliant. And here we see the Zerat portal. Fox decided to come down and collect the gold from the Zerat portal and stop it from pushing, so they do that. Should be able to get bot turret and Baron pressure both out of this because CLG can't contest in the 4v4. And there's we can talk about what Fox should be doing to end this game, right? They should be pushing out any sort of CLG vision in their blue side jungle. They should be taking down the Baron for basically free because there's nothing CLG can do to contest that. We cannot really talk about what CLG can or should be doing because they can't do anything. The game's over. They can try and prevent Fox from ending the game as much as they can, but they can't win at this point. Level 16 is coming for the Kassadin. 4 items now on the Jinx. Level 17 on the Vlad. Fox has scaled, right? Yeah, they can continue to wait, pick up a final item on the Jinx, get Kassadin yet another item. That's not necessary by any stretch. If Fox wanted to do this the easy way, they could just send 5 people mid and just force their way in, just dive all the turrets and just end the game, right? They have that advantage. They have that big of a lead right now. If they wanted to close this more cleanly, don't let CLG get this Baron vision, destroy this Rek'Sai tunnel network in the blue side jungle, clear out any sort of CLG presence in that blue side jungle, and take the Baron for free. There isn't really a reason anymore for Fox to wait. So they really should be taking some of these more aggressive moves. So instead, we are going to see Fenix makes a overeager play onto PoE, has to call in the teleport because Darshan is there. But even so, level 16 Kassadin, level 16 Vlad, like, this was a really good setup for CLG, and they just lose because, like, the champions are too powerful on the side of Fox right now. So you can see multiple dead for CLG. Fox could absolutely have pushed down that bottom lane turret before going to Baron. They choose not to for a more guaranteed Baron play. But honestly, the Baron was guaranteed to them already if they had instead chosen to play out the macro correctly and just shove CLG out of the blue side jungle and not giving them any chance to contest. But this works too. They get the Baron for pretty much free. They should reset after this. Let Phoenix respawn and resume the 1-3-1. Send Vlad top, send Cassid in bot, and push down mid with the Baron buff in 3 lanes. We do not need to watch this replay. This is... Phoenix was caught out, but because he's so much more powerful than the rest of CLG at this point, because that's what happens to a Cassid at level 18, Fox just wins anyway. So now they're going to let the Zerat portal do its work in the top lane. I think that's a mistake. They could just as easily be pushing all of the lanes at once. As is, there's nothing CLG can do to defend any of these turrets. They make the call to engage onto Phoenix, which is basically saying, yeah, we're going to lose our mid inhibitor and probably the game, but we don't want to lose our bottom inhibitor too. So we will make this trade, and basically trading off, basically allowing Fox to get the mid inhib for free, but so that they can stop them from getting the bot inhib. But CLG then proceeds to run in. Fox gets a fight. Fox wins the fight, because of course Fox wins the fight. And now the game's over. For good this time, as opposed to it being over for the past 20 minutes, which it kind of has been. So this was CLG versus Echo Fox. Really questionable game. Poorly played, in my opinion, by both teams. Fox kind of won for free because even though both team comps were bad, the Fox comp was easier to play. That's pretty much all there is to it. Neither of these teams are deserving of playoffs. Neither of these teams are deserving of much success. I don't expect either of them to do well in playoffs. I can think of a couple academy teams that would probably be more successful in the LCS, or in playoffs at least, than these teams. Really sad game, but c'est la vie. I'm John Valentine. Thanks for watching.